Yeah, and so English is very straightforward. You can think of what you say as a freight train going into a tunnel, and by the time you come out the other end of the tunnel, you must convince your audience that what you have said is true. So in Spanish, you can wander around a little and you can repeat yourself and you can use beautiful words. In English, it's like a knife. You just cut right through the information. So today we're going to talk about making your pitch. And this is a very special kind of presentation. It can be written, it can be oral. And what this pitch does is to help you focus your ideas so that you can present them to your audience. And you need to know who is in your audience. You need to know what you're going to say to them. And you need to know, most of all, why you are saying this to them. What is valuable about whatever you're going to say, and how are you going to present it to them? So I hope that this presentation today will be really useful to you. And we're going to talk about this with a little focus on open science. And this is a new, sort of not really new, maybe about a decade or a decade and a half, focus on how to present scientific research. Because what open science does is let anybody say whatever they want online, or print something and pass it out, or do whatever you want. And right now, there's very little control over that. So it's open, that's what it said. But it's a very good way for researchers to put their research in front of the public very quickly, because sometimes it will take 2 years to get something published, or even longer if it's a book. So this way, whatever you're working on, you can put out into the world right away. It's just that no one is checking to see if you are accurate or if what you are saying is true. So there's little control over it, and that's the big problem. However, right now, with the way things are, we have about 3 major publishing companies who are controlling what gets printed. They own the journals. They hire the editors. They ask for the reviewers to review their work. And I'm invited, for example, to review a lot of things that I'm not really an expert in, such as making wine from banana peelings in southern Mexico as a way of recycling the banana peels. Do I know about that? Well, I know about fermentation. I know about making wine, but I don't know about bananas. So I'm not right on that topic. And yet they ask me to review the article that may or may not get published. So it's a little iffy also. So what we need to do as researchers is to try to make sure that our information is accurate and that it's presented truthfully, and that we are being very reliable so that someone else could repeat our research and to do that so that it comes out with the same answer. Okay, that's basically what we're doing. So let's take a look at this. Danielle, if you'll go ahead to the first slide, please, that would be good. Thank you.
Okay.
And if you'll keep track of me with time, because I can talk for hours about this. Oh.
No, it's okay.
Okay, so we're going to talk about what open science is here. It gives unhindered access. Anybody can go read these articles. Little kids, their mother and father, other scientists, people who are just interested in whatever it is that you're doing. And it gives access to the data from public research. Okay, so the public can also get involved in this. And for example, in the US, we have, and you have it also in Chile, where people are out collecting data on their own. They aren't necessarily researchers, nor academics, nor have any training in the field. I know of one research project in Chile right now about bees and how many bees are there. So people go out and count the bees. Here we count the butterflies and the bees. So this is, anybody can sign up to go do this. And are they doing it really well? We don't know, but we get that information. And it's also very collaborative. You're not working just by yourself, but it's enabled by ICT, internet, computer technology tools, and all kinds of incentives. Okay, so this is really open science means just what it says. It's open. Anybody can participate. If you have friends who have an idea about, cooking something that's wild, or you have an idea about, blood testing, or it doesn't matter what you're talking about. You can write an article, do a little research, and then put your research online on your web page or on somebody else's web page. Okay, so let's look at the next page, please, Danielle. Okay, so there are 6 principles that have been set up by people who started this open science idea. First of all, there's access for everyone. That's really important to remember. Anyone can do the science and anyone can enter and have access. So it's open methodology. You tell people, how did you do it? All right. And you have to write down step by step what you do. This is the same for a scientific article that you want to get published. It has to be step by step. But in this case, you just put it out there for everybody else to look at. You're not being territorial. You are not guarding your way of doing something. You are making it available for everyone. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not good, but you're telling everybody what you're doing. It's also open source. So the software source code, if you are using open source software, such as Linux, or you're using an open source, such as Wikipedia, those are freely available. You can give them to anyone, you can modify them, and there's usually someone who's watching. So it's sort of like a data bank of lots of ideas here. It's also open door. This means you can take something from this source and you can give it to anybody. And you only have to follow one rule, which is that you tell where you got it. Okay, so if you do some research and someone wants to copy your research, they can copy anything out of there, but they have to tell where they got it. So that's the rule, but not everybody follows that. So it's still a little iffy. This is a new way of presenting research. It's also open access. It's unrestricted use of these electronic resources. So anybody can go to your web page or go to your website where you are publishing, or go to the university website where the university agrees to publish open access information. If it's open, anybody can use it, and they are really supposed to tell where they got it. They don't always do that. They may plagiarize. So you want to be sure that you put a copyright notice on there that this is your information and nobody else can use it. You will notice that this set of the website, or the web page that I'm showing you here, this PowerPoint, does not have my copyright on it. Okay, so you can use this and share it with other people. This is open source for you. It's open peer review. So that means anybody can go make a comment. Like, I don't like this research because it doesn't seem like it's very important. Or I don't like this research because they didn't follow a very good methodology. Or this is great research, but we need also to look at some other things. So it's a good way to get ideas to pursue for future research. But the peer review process is not being done by somebody who has been hired or invited by the journal. It's just out there in the world, and anybody from anywhere can comment on this, okay? And then finally, we have what's called the OER, the Open Educational Resources. These are very important. This is like Wikipedia. This is an open resource, okay? Anybody can use it, and it's important that it's in any format, it's in any medium, but it's in the public domain. It may be copyrighted, but it's released to you. So things like copy-free designs that you might copy off the internet, or copy-free research, you can copy it because they have said you can. But if it has a copyright notice and you copy it, you are violating that. That's plagiarism. You can be fined. You can lose your job. We have had senators in the United States who've lost their positions because they have stolen information and presented it as if their own. We even had a university president who quoted someone and did not give access to them, and he lost his position as well. So it's very important. I have written things. I actually sued once because someone copied a part of my book and they printed it, and I won, because you're not allowed to do that. That's called plagiarism, and it can be done either orally or in writing. So if someone says that this is their material and they have a copyright information sign on it, it's a little C inside of a circle. If you see that copyright sign, it belongs to them, and you have to get permission before you use it. Okay, so be very careful about that. Or if it's in the public domain, like Wikipedia, you can copy anything from there. That is an open source what do I want to say? It's like an encyclopedia. Anyone can contribute. They now have people who look at it and verify that everything is correct there, but anyone can add to Wikipedia. And in fact, there are invitations sometimes about a site that says, if you have information, we'd like to hear about you. So, you know, send that to them, and they have a group of people who are not exactly reviewers or editors, but they are truth verifiers. They're making sure that what you're saying is true. And once it's on Wikipedia, it's open for everybody in the world. You use it, I use it. When it first started, I forbade my students to use it. I said, you are not allowed to use Wikipedia as a source. It's not reliable. But today, Wikipedia is reliable and you can use it safely. Okay, but notice this, it says it permits no cost access, so it's free. You can reuse it, you can repurpose it. So maybe I put up some information about my research on childhood heart diseases, and you say, oh, I would like to use that in my website about da-da-da. And so you use my information in your document, but you need to tell that you got it from me. Up here, this is attribute or share alike. You use the information, and if you want to change it, you have to say that you've changed it. You have adapted it, and then you're giving it out in another website. That's okay in open science. It is not okay if you're using the traditional science. Okay, all right, Danielle, please. Okay, so here's some examples. You probably are using a lot of these. Maybe some of you use GNU and Linux. That's one of the first online how to make your computer work web programs. Maybe you use Mozilla Firefox as one of your softwares on your computer. I use Firefox all the time. It changes every maybe 3, 4, 6 months because they've improved it, because people have contributed ideas. So this is like groupthink. Okay, everybody's contributing. We also have open collaboration. One of these is Unilever's innovation portal. I don't know if you know about this, but you can look it up if you're doing hard science particularly. And this is a place where people put up ideas or research that they are doing right now, and they are asking you to come on and innovate with them. You put in your idea for new research, and you will get some collaborators there. You need to check them out, but this is a really good place where you want to do this. You have open peer review. However, if you put your things on PLOS, anybody is going to review it. And right now it's like pretty chaotic. Okay, we don't know if this is going to work to just have everybody coming in and commenting and say things, but this is a website that you can use, and this is relies on everybody in the world. You can have a Japanese person or Russian, I don't care, wherever they're coming from, Ukraine even, commenting on your whatever you put up there, your science. There are open notebooks. IPython and Jupyter are two. They are the most used, and these are really good for lab journals, or if you're teaching a class or you're in a class where the professor is relying on people to make data comments. This keeps track of them. So it's a really good journal that you can use, and it works very well. It's open source, and you just put it in the computers in your lab or in your class, and everyone can contribute to this. So it's a notebook to keep track. It's sort of like a data bank. And then you have open educational resources, which you talked about. These are pretty new, but a lot of them are working very well. Again, there's an electronic publishing. There are lots of these. They're open monographs. So maybe you and 3 of your friends are all doing research in the same area. You can put a monograph here, and there are lots of these online. Just look up open science monographs and you'll get lots of them. Some of them charge you and they publish for you. Others you can build your own website. They offer reviews for you. So it's up and down. And then there's citizen science. This is butterflies, birds, bees, whatever. And here's a really good one for the US government. Tells you lots of these open sciences, and there are some going on in Chile as well. So I think this is a very interesting thing to think about, where if you are teaching or you are in a class, all of you can go out and count something, or you can collect soil samples or whatever they are doing. Then there's crowdfunding. So you need some money. Just go to this place, and it's publicly encouraged crowdfunding for your experiments. And it's amazing how much money you can get with these, but you better have a very good short description of what it is that you're doing. And that's why we're talking about the pitch today, because the pitch will enable you to present your information very succinctly, very short and concise and clearly. So that's a very good source. So keep track of this, and this will be downloaded for you to use later. So these are controversial. They're not especially a favorite of publishers, as you can imagine, because it might cut into their profits. WAS, Elsevier, some of these others will say, oh, it's not reliable, it's no good. However, it is fast, it's cheap, and you can be sure that you're getting published. Will the universities recognize this as something that is good? Well, they are finally recognizing online journals. So I expect in another 10 years or so, we're going to have some very good online science sites, which are going to be recognized by universities, and you will be given credit for the work that you do on those, as well as getting published in an index journal. It takes time, and it may not be as reliable yet as an index journal, but if you have something interesting to say and you can't get it said otherwise, or you're in a hurry to get some helpers, some collaborators, this is a very good way to do it. Okay, go ahead, Daniel, please. So mainly, you're going to have to ask yourself the WH questions, and these are the same questions that we will ask for our pitch when we decide to write a pitch or give an oral pitch. The WH questions are who,
Creo que perdimos conexión con Ana.
Because you will have. Why is the research important? Why is it cost effective? To whom is it important? Is it important on a global situation? Why is it important? Okay, you've got to answer that. If you apply for a Fondesit grant in Chile, ANID, any of those big grants, this is the question that your jurors are going to ask. Why should we fund this research? So if you can answer these questions in a very short form by giving a pitch, either in writing or orally, you are apt to be able to persuade them to give you the money instead of one of the other 80 people who's applying for that little pocket of money that you are after. There's limited amount of public support, okay? There's just a limited amount of money. And we need to be very careful about how we present our ideas to our jurors, to our judges, to our reviewers, to the public, okay? Because ANID grants and Fondesit grants, those are all paid by the government. What is the government's interest? The government and those jurors are your audience. Why is your research important for Chile? Okay, why? What good is it? Who are you going to involve in this? Who's doing the research? Are you reliable? Do you know what you're doing? Who are the stakeholders? Those are the people who have interest. For example, there's some research going on right now about fire mitigation at the borderline between where fires come from the western hills of Chile and into the valley where people are living and growing vegetables. There is a borderland there, all right? And they want to make it stronger so that the fire doesn't cross and burn up all the grapes, doesn't cross and burn up the watermelons. It doesn't cross that border. And this is very interesting. Who's involved there? It's not just the researchers. It's the people who own the property. It's the people who harvest. It's the people who process that food. It's the people who ship it out of Chile. And it is the Chilean government who gets tax money from this and who wants to keep Chile going as a viable, self-supporting nation, okay? So these are really important. You need to know who has done that and who are the supporters of this research and who's in the audience. So what is the research about? What are the ingredients and tools you're going to use? What's your methodology? What good is this? What are the copyrights or patents that you get? All of this is really important in open science and in traditional science. These questions are important and they need to be answered in short form. Also look at how current is the research. I just read a paper that was using data from 2013. That's a little bit old, okay? That's a whole 10 years old. Is that still current? Get your stuff up to date. The last 3 years, if you're using sources, are really important, and your data has to rely on some of that new research, okay? Where is the research going on? Are you doing it in Chile about Chileans? So who cares outside of Chile about this? You've got to tell how it relates to someone else. Why is it important for somebody outside of Chile on a global basis? You don't have to do that right at the end, but you need to focus on that international quality. Chile is part of a lot of collaboration in South America. It's part of the Chinese system of harbors and roads. It's part of the, works with OECD countries. It works with medical factories and putting out drugs and all kinds of things. So you need to think about that. The question about how is this investigation being done? What is your methodology? Is it logical? Are you trying to do something new? Are you using old methods that really are outdated? Think about all those things. And then we get to why. This is the focus, and you can make yourself a big sign, put it on your refrigerator or your bed or over your door that just says why, and ask yourself those questions constantly. Why is this important? To whom is it important? Is it important on a global scale or only here? If you're doing medical research in Chile about COVID, that applies to the world. All right, everybody's got COVID. If you're talking about diabetes in the Central Valley of Chile, does that apply to everybody? Of course it does. Everybody's got diabetes in the world. But if you're looking at copper research on, the mining and how soon the copper is going to wear out, well, does that apply to everybody? It's not. But they use copper. They don't use the mining, but you can make this important to them if you tell them that copper is in their cars, it's in their medicines, it's in their computers, it's in everything. And we don't have a synthetic copper. We have synthetic nitrate now. So the nitrate in the northern desert is not so important anymore. It makes good fertilizer, it makes bombs, but it's not the end of the nitrate story. All right. So question is, why should you pursue this research on a public basis during open science? Well, we just talked about that. You can get collaborators. You can interest a lot of people who might be wanting to give you a little money. You can also let people know that researchers in Chile are doing important work for them. So open science is really important, but traditional science is still leading the way. And that's why we need a pitch. Okay, Danielle, please. So here's a pitch. Why is it useful in open science? These are the answers for that. It focuses your thinking, and it tells those people who are coming to your website or who are getting to your research, it talks to them about very quickly, it tells them what you are going to do. So it causes you to focus your mind and present the information quickly, but it also defines your purpose. And you have to realize that you are defining a purpose for everyone in the world who wants to look at it. The 10-year-old who's playing around on the computer and is interested in frogs might suddenly get onto your page about dissection tools or about hearts because you're using the frog and that word is a key word and it comes up. Okay, so it's got everything. So you define your purpose. You're going to have the largest audience and the deepest level from the most brilliant researchers to your 10-year-old kid, all right? Everybody can get to your open science. So you have to consider this. The cultures and the politics are not all Chilean, all right? The US politics, we just had another election yesterday. It's very interesting here. It's interesting in China. It's interesting in Ukraine. You've got politics and cultures clashing all over the world, and they're also helping each other. So think about that. You have to persuade people who are not thinking the same way you do, okay? You have to prioritize. You've got to be able to organize your ideas. And I think having worked in Chile for 20 years, there are a lot of people who take their time and talk about whatever it is they're interested in. And they often get off the topic and then they talk about their aunt or their uncle or, their kids, and then they go back to the topic. When you are presenting your pitch, you cannot do that. You really need to focus and stay online, stay organized. So prioritizing what's most important and how to address that is good. So it needs to be used very structured way. The pitch is used internationally. It's also used as the basis for academic articles, either written or presented at a Congress. This is what I'm giving you today is just your straight line organization for that. So it can be oral, it can be written, it can be online. It has a clear audiovisual demonstration. If you're using it, it's got to be very clear, and it's useful to or for everybody, okay? Because it's open science. If you are writing for a journal, it has to be useful to the people who are reading that journal. But I just read an article about the banana leaf fermentation, as I told you. Think about who might be interested in that. It's being written by some researchers in Mexico. This particular article is going to an international fermentation journal. So it's going to be read by people who are interested in fermentation. It's probably going to be read by some chemists because they involve a lot of chemistry. And it's going to be written by people who are interested in sustainability because they are using waste products to produce something that can be useful. So you're going to get a wide variety of people who may not really understand all of that information, the scientific information. You've got to make it clear to them. You can't just write for your scientist of fermentation. You may also, because you're publishing publicly, you may be open to funding here. So people are going to look at this, where can I donate my money? There are lots and lots of small organizations that give a lot of money away every year. I have a friend whose family gives away about, I don't know, $250,000 every year to educational things. Who knows about them? Well, you've got to do a little research for funding for these kinds of things. And you can also find and build your research teams. You're going to find people who want to collaborate with you. If you're writing about banana fermentation, maybe they're writing about some other fruit peeling fermentation. I know a scientist in Chile who's working on the skins of Cabernet Sauvignon grapes as a cure for diabetes, and he's making good progress on that. So, you know, it's all kind of related. Look at the peeling research, okay? And open science can be cheaper, more fun actually than traditional science, because you can just publish whatever you want, right? Whatever you think is important, you can publish that online using your own tools. And so you don't have somebody saying, no, you can't do that, or yes, you should do this other thing. You can do it yourself. So it makes it a lot of fun and you can get it up there quickly. But here's the big problem. Is it reliable? Can we trust you? Do we know who you are? Okay, this is the real problem with open science right now. Can we really trust it? So this is something that you need to think about. You need to show that you are trustworthy if you're publishing this way. But the pitch format that we're going to look at now is very useful. So go ahead, Daniel, please. Okay, so we're going to prepare an effective pitch. The pitch normally is a little contest that is run by universities for doctoral students. We have them all over the world. UDD has one. There are several universities in Australia where this competition format started. We have them at the University of Colorado, which is my home university, and I will report that my students in Chile do a better job than the Colorado students. Maybe it's because it's so intense and I'm so mean, but you know, we do that. So this is used as a very quick way to present your research. In the competitions, you get 3 minutes and 1 PowerPoint slide to present your project, your research project. So it causes you to focus your mind. And we just did this with doctoral students at UDD a couple of months ago. And a couple of them told me they felt like their brains had been turned inside out. Because what I'm asking you to do is to think in a way that you don't normally think because you are Spanish speakers. The rhetorical structure of the language tends to control the way you think. And Spanish is just not as rude, perhaps, or as direct as English is. It can be, but it's not usually that way. It's much more friendly. If you meet someone on the street, what's the first thing you say to them? How's your mother? How's your husband? How are your kids, right? there's this nice, friendly, lovely introduction. If I meet someone in America, you don't do that usually. You say, oh, what's going on? And I want to know what you're doing, and you tell me directly what you're doing. Okay, you don't tell me about your mother or your father. You might, but it's a little different. We don't have that social friendliness that comes with Spanish. And I think that's one of the things you've got to get rid of that if you're going to do a pitch, because you're going to have this very direct structure, introduction, a body, and conclusion, and all the reports that you write for these international journals, all the pitches that you give, all the presentations you give in an international congress need to follow this very little straightforward structure, okay? And we've got it in this order. Here's what you get. The purpose, which is in your introduction. You must have a purpose for your research. What are you going to do with it? Why is it important, okay? You talk about the background. Who else has done this research? Who else is interested in it? Why is it important? Okay, why do we need your research? If there's no need for it, why do it? Only because maybe you're interested in the topic. That's good for open science, but not necessarily for the traditional research. What methods will you use? Old ones, or will you invent some new ones? What are your results? What did you find out? Sometimes we call these the findings. You just tell, here's what I found out, or what I hope I'm going to find out. And then you give a conclusion and maybe a recommendation. You tell what we just told you, and you tell what recommendation we might have for doing more research. So for a written pitch, you're also going to have references, appendices, maybe some charts that are included. But it's this same structure that goes into every academic article. Every grant that you write for ANID or for Fondesit or for Fondart or any other grant needs these parts, and it's very organized. You can write them separately and combine them together. That's okay. But in 3 minutes, you've got to cover all that information very quickly. So you need focus. That's why I say at the very beginning, see if you can answer the WH questions in 1 sentence each. That's just about how much time you will have for 3 minutes. Okay, it's not very long. You can time yourself and see. So what you want is 1 or more well-developed paragraphs. They have to be unified, they have to be coherent, they have to connect to each other, they need to be concise, and they need to be very clear, and they need to talk to your audience, not just out there talking about this thing. You need to think about, what is this audience interested in? What do they need? What do they want to know? Do they have any biases, right? Are they going to already be against you before you even open your mouth? You need to think about those things. And you want to edit for concision. That means concise, short, as quickly as you can, clarity and time, and your visual limits. So 3 minutes, 1 PowerPoint slide. Even if you're not in a competition, this is a very useful exercise for every research project that you are doing. Can you deliver the information in 3 minutes? And this is for researchers. I've talked to the researchers I work with at UDD and the graduate students. I've talked to you about this. This is just, it's a good thing to focus. It's like you've got a funnel here. You put in all the stuff, and then you divide it up, you categorize it, you organize it, and out at the bottom comes your purpose, your thesis, the thing that you want to prove or to say to your audience. Turn that funnel upside down. Here's your thesis. Here are the categories. Here are all the details to explain it, and do it in 3 minutes. It's a very useful exercise for everyone, even for people who are not doing science. Periodically, if I need to plan a party, for example, I use this model. It's like, okay, I've got all this stuff. I want to cook this. I want to invite these people, put it all in, and then I sort it out. And at the end, I say, okay, we're going to have this kind of a theme for this party. And that's what we're doing. So in fact, tonight I'm doing a party for about 30 people. And we had to plan the menu, and we had to plan the invitations, and we had to figure out who is invited, all of those things. It's the same thought process, okay? And you can get off track very easily by thinking about Aunt Jose and Juana, who maybe won't like to eat this thing. Are we going to just satisfy her? So it's very easy to do this with anything that you're doing. All right, then you want to follow the chronology. This means, what are we going to do first, second, third, fourth? of your project. So if you've done the project already and you're telling what you've done, follow through and tell what you did in order. If you're planning to do the project, tell in order how you're going to do it. The chronology is very important for your audience so that they can follow you and know what you're going to do when. And then we need to provide logical connections, okay? It's very easy not to have the connection between the background information and your methodology. For example, you've just been telling about who did what in this research topic, and now you're going to tell about what you're going to do. Look for some segue, we say, how to get from one area to another. So is there a researcher who used some of the same methods that you do? You can say, I'm going to use the methods used by so-and-so to do my project, but I'm also going to use these other methods, so that you tie them together. Do not add any extra information. Leave out Juana or Uncle Jose, leave them out of the picture. Be concise and be intelligible to an intelligent, wide audience. Even in the pitch contest, you have people there who are not in your field. You know that at the pitch contest we just had at UDD for the doctoral students, we had people from law and medicine who were doing the judging. Those topics that they were presenting, the students were presenting about, were not all about law or medicine, right? So you know that those people who have their doctorates have been well educated, they can read, they can listen, they can hear, but they're not in your precise field. So you must make the information intelligible to them. They have to be able to understand that. And then finally, be persuasive. How can you do this? When you're talking, you're trying to be pleasant, all right? You don't just turn your back and talk to the wall, because nobody's going to watch you. You need to talk to and with your audience, okay? And the main goal here is you're going to sell your project or your research to your audience. Maybe they are the funding group, as if you were selling to InES. Maybe it is a research project you want to sell to your professor, who might not be really interested in your topic, but you want to tell them why it's important. Maybe you're a researcher who wants to get some colleagues. You've got to talk to them about your research and why it's important. There's a group at UDD right now who's studying connexin 46s. Who cares about connexin 46s? Those are just little proteins, genetic proteins in your eye lens, right? And as I asked the researcher, well, I've had cataract surgery. I have plastic eye lenses now. So I don't have any connexin 46s. How's that going to affect whether I get cancer? These connexins anymore. So what do you do about that? So it's this kind of thing. You have to think about who could be interested in your research and how are you going to sell them your project to be interested and hopefully to give you some money to do it. Okay, so let's go ahead, Danielle, please. I just got a note that says my internet is unstable. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you okay.
Okay, let me know if it crashes again. We had a little trouble this morning. So there are a couple of kinds of presentations you can give. One is just for information, right? So that's what I'm doing today. I'm not really trying to sell you on my research project, but I am going to give you some information. So these will describe, and they may or may not sell. So I hope I'm convincing you that you will need to do a pitch. And they describe the investigation or the project that we're about to do. So they need to have a hypothesis. This is what you think is going to happen with your research, right? This is what you thought. If you already did the research, you thought this would happen and you proved that it was true. You think that your hypothesis. Your thesis is what you think is true, okay? This is what you believe is true. It's your purpose. It's the reason for doing the research. The hypothesis is hyper, it's over that, right? It's telling you what you think you will achieve with this. You have to include your essential points. What are the most important points that you're going to talk about? All right, and this is the information that you're just telling what you think is going to cost and what's important and those things. So you're giving information. You're not trying to tell them that you really want some money or anything else. So you can, but you don't have to. And keep it short and simple. This can be written. It can be a paragraph or it can be longer. I think Ani gives you 10 pages to explain what you're doing, but you also need to be persuasive to them to give you the money. So you have to give information as well as sell, all right? And notice here how it's the spoken format. So 25% less of your report or 5 pages, you get 20 minutes, right? So that's not very long to give a lot of information. And in a good pitch, you're getting 3 minutes. If you go to a Congress and you have your own time slot, you might get 20 minutes. If you're really important and you're the keynote speaker, you might get an hour. But if you're part of a panel, you might get 8 minutes or less. All right, so you need to be careful, and the pitch is going to help you control for a small time, and then you can add more details. It's that funnel. You come to the point, maybe you only get your 3 or 4 organization points and explain one key position of each of those. But what you want to remember is that you've got to focus. You've got one purpose here, and you've got one audience. You want to convey your purpose to that audience, all right? So think about who they are. And it needs to engage and inform. This is what information means. It informs. It tells you what is going to happen. This is basically a what presentation and why it's important, okay? And then there's this question that I always ask students. Should you write down or make a lot of notes or try to memorize if you're giving this orally? And I will tell you, do not memorize. Do not. You skip one word and the whole rest of your presentation is gone from your mind. You're nervous, you're a little stressed, and this is for professors going to congresses as well. It's much better to have some notes. If you're reading, you're not engaging your audience. So try to make notes and speak. You are the expert in this field that you are talking about, because it's your research, it's your niche, it's your little hole that you're filling up. So you know it, the audience does not. If you leave out some little part, they will never know. But it's better to have notes and talk from the notes than to read, because then you're not looking. If I'm reading here, I'm going to be looking right down at my notes, and I'm never going to look at you in the eye. What I want you to do is to look at your audience. And if you don't know where they are, I mean, for example, I can't see many of you, but I can look straight ahead and you can see me. So with my camera, you're going to catch me. But if I turn to the side, it looks like I'm talking to somebody else and not to you. And I want you to know that I'm talking to you and with you today. Okay, Danielle, let's go for the next slide, if we could, please. Okay, so here we're going to do a persuasive pitch. And we're going to think about 2 things. One is to how to prepare it, and the other is how to deliver it. So you have to think about 2 very key things. Your purpose here with a persuasive presentation is to persuade the audience to agree with you, to believe you, to trust you, right? You want them to believe that you can do this research and that it's going to be honest, it's going to be reliable, they will be able to depend on the research. And then you want to persuade them to give you some money or to print your paper if you're applying this as a paper to a journal, right? There's always a cover letter that goes, and the cover letter would do very well to follow this pitch format. What are we doing? How are we doing it? Follow all that right through, okay? So we're going to, in a persuasive presentation, describe what do we do, analyze why does it work, why is this important, why is it important to this audience and to everyone else, and then we're going to argue. All right, I've shown you what I'm going to do, and I want you to donate some money to my cause. I want you to fund this project. So you've got to have a need. Why does Chile need to study diabetes? Why does Chile need to study copper resources? Why does Chile need to study how the government works? And why are you the researcher who could do this, okay? And then finally, we need to know, why is this problem so serious that it needs to be solved? So ask yourself, who cares about this, right? Do only the parents of that baby that has the heart defect, are they the only ones who care about this? The government cares because the health system has to pay for their surgery or whatever. The nurses and doctors care because they are the people who are taking care of this baby. And you should care because this baby is part of the Chilean community. It's a resource for the future. So these kinds of things can explode from one little person who has this problem to everyone in the country and beyond. So ask yourself, who cares about this research? What is the problem? Why does it need to be solved? And who cares about it? And then you've got to tell why you are the person who can solve it with your proposed project. So it takes a lot of thinking. You're going to persuade and sell and argue, right? It can be open science. It can be pure science that is something new. And it can be applied science or open science, and it can be useful in traditional science that has been presented in these index journals. So if you are part of a team that can do the research, or you are the individual, you need to show yourself as capable. Why can you do this? You can give some background. You've done research in this area before. You've already led up to this point. You know what you're doing. Prove that you can do it. You've been supported by some other funding, that kind of thing. Okay. Then ask yourself, who's in the audience? What do they know and believe? Are they already convinced that you are doing good research, or do they not know anything about it at all? You've got to ask yourself, who's out there that you're talking to or that you're writing for. Okay. What do they believe? Do they think it's stupid to research about politics and the economy? Some people think it's a waste of time. They don't even vote, right? So if they think it's a waste of time, how are you going to convince them that they should pay attention to this, right? This is the trick. You need to think about them. What do they know? What do they believe? What do they want to learn? Or what do you think they need to learn? And do they want to give you some money? You don't know. Do they want to give you money, or you have to convince them? So these are things that you need to be thinking about. Make the readers listen, make the jurors trust you and agree with you. If they like your research and it's innovative, then you're going to get some money. Okay. And that's what you've got to show. You're doing something that's needed, that you've got a new angle on this topic, a new way to prove it. It's innovative research, and that you can be trusted to do this particular project. Right? Those things are very important. And remember, if you're giving an oral pitch, you get 3 minutes. If you're at a Congress, you might have 8 minutes to prove their point. If you're writing a proposal for InES, you've got 10 pages to present all of this. All right. So you need to think about this. The pitch can be adapted to anything. So your organizational strategies, think about sense attractive here. Either go from the least important support for you or the most important to the least. And it's generally a good idea to start with the least important factor that will support you and build up, but not always. It depends on what you're doing here. Think about chronological, first to last, and make them connected. And technical tools, what we use, internet, computer tools, or any other tools. Many of you are doing laboratory science. You're using all kinds of microscopes that have molecular microscopes or nuclear microscopes, or you're using certain kinds of tools for dissecting, or you are using, computer programs rather than cutting up animals. What is it that you're using, and why are they important to this research? Okay. So Daniel, how are we doing for time here?
If you want, we're going to make a break right now, like
okay,
10
that
minutes
would be
break.
fine. Yeah, let's do. And if anybody has questions, that's great.
I don't have questions in my private chat, but if somebody wants to raise the hand and talk with Anne, it's open to do that.
I'll ask a question. Let's see if there's a winner. Who can use open science? Nobody knows? You didn't remember? Renzo, are you there? Hello? Paula? Masaru? Are you there?
Hola, sí, yo voy a preguntar en español muy despacito porque mi inglés no,
Ya, está bien, sí.
no es tan bueno
Yo tengo
hablado.
una pregunta. Yo tengo una
Sí.
pregunta para ti. ¿Quién se puede para usar Open Science?
Todos
Todos,
podemos usar,
bueno.
absolutamente todos.
Okay, good.
Especialmente los
You win.
bibliotecarios, los investigadores.
Danielle, she gets a prize. Okay, yeah, okay.
All
Any
right.
other, are there any questions, anyone? Otherwise, let's take a little break, maybe 5 minutes
Paola
or
has a question. Paola has a
Okay.
question.
all right, good.
Dale, Paola.
La pregunta, sí, tenía una pregunta. El tema de peer review abierto
Yeah,
parece ser muy complejo. Si puedes profundizar un poco.
yeah. Este peer review in open science is very insecure right now because I can review as a peer, but maybe I don't know anything. And I have not been reviewed by my peers to be a peer reviewer. That's the advantage of the index journals. They have peer reviewers in the same field as the journal is printing the publications. So those peer reviewers theoretically know the topics and they are very reliable about that. That's the advantage of the index journals now. But I think that in another 10 years, perhaps, the peer review for open science will be much more reliable than it is today. Today, it's just anybody can do it, okay? So that's the trick. Wikipedia, however, has got a group of reviewers who are paid because you can donate money to Wikipedia, it gets funding. So they pay these people, they are not exactly reviewers, but they make sure that all of the information is correct. The reviewer for an index journal should make sure the information is correct, but they also are judges of whether they like that research or not, okay? And I know of some cases where these reviewers will favor their friends. So that's not good. They know who did the research and they will say, yes, we should publish this. That doesn't happen too often, but I know of a few cases where this has happened. But right now, if you want to be peer reviewed, your best bet is to send your article to a peer reviewed journal. And I say start at the top, go for the best, because they usually give you the best. If they answer you at all, you will get good recommendations for your paper. And if they feel that your paper doesn't fit in that journal, they will recommend others for you. So start at the top journal. It doesn't hurt anymore to be rejected by them than it does by a lesser journal. So go for broke, okay? Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Anybody else?
What about if we take a 10 minutes break, and
I think it's good. Go get a drink of water,
Okay.
use the restroom, have a donut, whatever. What time is it?
it's
Tea time for you.
16:40, and we can be back at 5:10. It's all right.
Oh, all right, okay, yep, uh-huh. Okay, it's just past noon here, so, okay. I'll see you
Okay.
all in 10 minutes or so. All right, go have a cup of tea or something, all right? Cheerio.
All right, and thank you.
Mhm. We've been talking, yeah, are we okay? Yeah, we're okay.
Yeah,
We've been
it's okay.
talking about open science and the lack of controls for assuring that the research is really good or not, as well as whether the researchers are good or not. So it's still in flux, but it is a very good way to present information that is preliminary. You can copyright it or not, but it's a way of getting your information out and asking for collaboration if you like, as well as asking for money. we're now talking about the pitch itself, which is a way of thinking. And there is a competition for this, and we're going to talk a little bit about that now. So go ahead, please, Daniel, to the next slide. Okay, so this is a written pitch, and this is something like a proposal for InES or Fond Art, or for the university gives grants as well for both graduate students and researchers. Sometimes they are on a single topic, sometimes for groups. So I think watch out for those. There's a lot of private money that's also available around in the world. You can just look up grants for this or that, whatever it is that you're working on. But what I'd like to encourage all of you to do is to work ahead. Very often I work with researchers and their proposals are written a week or 2 weeks before they're due. That is not enough time to reorganize and to really make sure that the English is correct and so forth. All of these grant proposals, almost all of them, need to be presented in English now because they have international reviewers who are looking at them and they speak English. So if your English is not where you think it needs to be for your future, I suggest you go take some classes or study on your own or work online there's some very nice online programs now. So work on that English, but also work ahead. Start thinking about next year for the research. What project can you design that you can present next year in, say, November, all right, or February, or something, because we're going to have, InES gives usually once or twice a year. There are proposals. We never know exactly when they're coming, but you can plan ahead so that you've got your outlines, write a rough draft of it that you can rework, and do this in your spare time. Those of you who are working as instructors or faculty members, you know that you have very little time. I was a faculty member for a lot of years, and I did research on my own, and I edited and did a lot of work, but you have to fit it in between teaching the classes, grading papers, preparing, and so forth. And graduate students all know that those are called the endurance degrees. You just have to put up and keep going, and there's always more work to do than you have time to do it. So start now. If you have an idea, jot it down. Keep a little file of notes, ways that you would approach these projects, things that you would like to do that you don't have time to do, and maybe you will be able to get a grant and make time to do that. So you know that your attitude, your energy, and your time is really important. So start now and make notes for a year ahead or 6 months ahead. Just plan. Don't wait until the last minute. The call comes out and you usually have a month to get your proposal in. So just start now. Get ready. Be sure it's clear. Think about how concise it can be and follow the grant proposal exactly. InES will give you, usually these government grants for Chile give you 10 pages maximum. They want Verdana or some other typeface, size 10. They tell you exactly what they want. And why do they do that? So that everybody's proposal looks the same and they don't know, it goes into the reviewers blind. They don't know who you are. So you have these reviewers and everybody's report looks the same, and you have to choose it based on what the contents are, how well they're presented, not on who's presenting it. Okay, so it's blind jurying. I've been a juror on some of these. I'm a juror for giving scholarships to study overseas. I know the names, but I don't know these people. And it's very interesting that they have to follow a certain format. So follow that religiously. Find out what it says. How long is it? What font, typeface are you using? How the page is structured? Do they want an introduction? Do they want an abstract or not? Do they allow you to use graphics? Follow it, okay? This is for grant funding. It's to apply to a Congress. Usually, if you're going to give a presentation at a Congress, they will say they want an abstract of anywhere from 50 to 250 words. They don't want your whole paper. They don't want your presentation, but they want to know what you are going to talk about. And this is where the pitch comes in, because it's short and it's very well confined. Okay, yeah, all right. So just follow exactly what they say. And publications, they will tell you 3,000 words. They mean 3,000 words. 1,500 words, that's what they mean. They don't want 3,000, all right? So they will tell you what they want, what they can accept. And I just finished editing an art and literary journal. The maximum length for those articles was 1,500 words. A poem had to fit on one page. The artwork could be any size. It could be sized to a regular printing page. So, you know, you tell people what you can accept and what you want, and you want to get into that journal, or you want to publish it yourself. Some of those online sites also have length descriptions and so forth. So follow that, pay attention, and follow this format. What is your purpose? There's your thesis. What is the background? Who's doing it? Who has done some work in this field? What methods will you use? What results have you done or you are expecting? Because these are grant proposals. You have not done the research. You're asking for money for those. So tell what results do you think you'll have? If you can give some discussion about why it's important to go back and think about your purpose, your introduction, why is this important and to whom? And then a conclusion and maybe a recommendation. We need more research in this area. This particular thing is going to fit into the niche right now. The most recent paper I read about, for example, the connexin 46s, it's talking about certain kinds of cancer and how this, if this research works, it's going to solve this problem and it will lead to some more. So that's what you want to do. Include the graphics when they say you can have them. Some of the UNID grants don't want to see graphics. Some say, yes, you may include your tables and charts and so forth. So it depends on what they are saying that they want, okay? And do they want them embedded in the text or they do want them in an appendix at the end? Find that out. Include your budget when required or when it's persuasive. Show that you're not going to cost very much to get some really good results. That's the idea here, okay? Be sure you include your references and your appendices. And the references are very important. Every reference that you cite in your text must be cited in the reference list at the end. Every source that you have in the reference list must be cited in the paper. They work together. And be sure that they follow the format that's required. If it's Modern Language Association, or it's American Psychological Association, or it's the Chicago Board, or it's whatever it is, you need to follow that format. So be sure that you do that. Check your resources carefully for the format and also that the spelling is correct. I know a couple of professors whose papers were sent back because they misspelled the words, the names actually of a couple of their source material people. And it turned out that one of them was one of the reviewers. Now that's a big mistake. So be very careful that you have all of those references correct. And then sometimes UNID especially will ask for background on the researchers. Who are you? What are you doing? Are you teaching? Are you a student? What are you doing? And there are grants for all kinds of purposes. So just keep track of them. Denise at John's office with Danielle and Victor, they have all of those on file. They know who's offering money right now and who will be offering it. They can give you a guess of when the next grant proposals might be coming out. So go bug them. Just drop by the office and say, I'd like a cup of tea, please. And tell me when I can apply for some money. All right. Make those guys do some work because they're good at their jobs and we just want to keep them busy, don't we? Huh, Daniel and Victor? Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead, please. So if we're going to do it for oral delivery now, you've got to think about a few other things, okay? First of all is the timing. How much time do you have? If you're going to a Congress, find out how much time you'll have. If you're going to a pitch competition, and we have those for the doctoral students every year, you get 3 minutes, that's all, 3 minutes and one PowerPoint slide. So you got to think about this. First of all, you want to think about yourself, okay? Because you're going to have to get up in front of some people. So think about how you're dressed. Are you going to wear your sweatpants or no? Do you have to wear a suit? No. Do you have to look nice? Yes. Professional. Look like you're going to work. You want to be personable. So don't be frowning at everyone all the time. You can smile, look at them, talk to them. You can tell a little joke if you have time, whatever, something to make them think that you want to be their friend, okay? And think about your breathing, okay? I once had to give a lecture for, I think there were 3,500 people, and I forgot to take breaths. And I got so stressed, my eyes started wiggling and I couldn't see, and I remembered breathe. Okay, so just stop and take a breath every so often. Be sure that you're getting enough air to give your presentation. Also think about your mind and your composure. You're the boss here. You know the material. You are the expert. The audience doesn't know really what exactly you're going to do. It might be your professor. He still might know exactly what you're doing, or you might be the professor presenting to your peers. They don't exactly know what you're doing. So you're the boss. So be confident about this. You know, you're in charge here. When you write your dissertation, you PhD students, or your master's thesis, those of you who are working on master's degrees, you are the boss of that information because you have done the research. You have figured out how to explain it to other people. It's yours. You are the expert in the world on this. That's why you did that particular project. All right. So you know that. So your mind, just relax. You have 3 minutes. That goes really fast. Okay. And then it will be over. So you just relax and you just tell people what you want them to believe. All right. That's what we're doing. So you think about your ambience and your attractiveness. Think about where you're giving this lecture. Now, the doctoral students gave their pitch in a little auditorium. It goes up the hill. People can all see you and you're up on a stage. So get in there and practice a little bit if you can. Get yourself onto a stage or wherever you're going to have to give this presentation. If you're going to a Congress, go check out the room where you're going to be giving your presentation. Look at it and say, okay, how big is it? How many people can fit in here? And maybe you get there and there are only 6 people and you thought there would be 50. Don't be discouraged because those 6 really want to hear you. Okay. And they may be important than those 50. So whoever's there, think about the ambience. How does this place feel? What's the atmosphere in here? Okay. Should you wear a bright colored shirt or something so that you stick out, or should you blend into the background? If you have those abilities to choose those things, you can do it. You just want to show that you are personable, you are professional, and you are trustworthy. Those 3 things. All right. You want them to know. So look at the staging and look to see where, if there's a podium, is there a table? Are there things, there cords you might trip on? Where is the screen? All those kinds of things. You need to see where you are going to be in relationship. It's a stage set. It's a theater. You are the actor or the actress. All right. But you have something very important to say. So get yourself organized that way. Online presentation means paying attention to details. Look at your background colors. I see some of you, I see bottles of wine. I see others that have books. I see some with very bright lights. I can't see your face. If you look at me, I have northern lights. They're keeping you entertained while I'm talking. This is a regular Zoom background. You can get one of those if you want. They have all kinds. They have some that make you look very academic because they're just rows of books. They have some that are other desert islands and things. So you can put a nice background behind you that doesn't show that you didn't make your bed this morning or that your dog is running around or whatever. Okay, so you can do that if you want. So pay attention to these kinds of things, okay? You'll notice that I didn't wear a light green sweater because then I would look the same as the background. So I have a dark color here, there's dark color up here, and then there's this moving little thing that just keeps people going, but it's not super distracting. So you think about that when you're online. Think about the audience. How do you want them to see you? How do you want them to think about you? And it's important to practice. Okay, practice the timing, practice your voice, practice how you're going to talk to them and with them. You are speaking with them. And then you need to know your pitch, what exactly you're going to say. I suggest not memorizing, even if you have to give it in English and you speak Spanish. I think try your English. We're not judging your English. We're judging what it is that you're saying to us. Okay, so long as we can understand you, that's fine. And then be sure that you have a strong conclusion. You end up reminding people what your purpose is and what the research is going to do for them and for everyone else. and you just make it really hit home, okay? You want to leave them with the most important idea that you have. You have to show them the need for the project is going to be satisfied, and you want them to trust you, okay? So I think this is what you really need to do. And if there's something else that needs to be done with this project, you can say so, all right? And always say thank you. Thank you for your attendance and your attention, or whatever you want to say. I think sometimes people say thank you for your time. You don't necessarily have to do that because people have to be there, but you can certainly thank them for their attention and thank them for their cooperation and help. Yep, that kind of thing. All right. They're your friends. Think of them as your friends, not your judges, even though they're judging you. Think of them as your friends. You want them to work with you on this project and to maybe to give you some money. Okay, Daniel. Here's a few last minute reminders. Consider the purpose and the audience. What are the WH questions? Who can tell me? Who remembers? Romina Henriquez. Do you remember what the WH questions are? Can you hear me? Okay, tell me one of those questions. You have to unmute.
I'm sorry, my English is...
Speak Spanish. I can speak really terrible Spanish. It's probably much worse than your English, okay? So it's okay. So what are the WH questions? Las preguntas para WH. Can anybody answer those questions? Who can tell me? Nobody remembers. You will not get your credit because you didn't answer. Andres Octavio, whoever you are. Where are you?
Hi, Ian.
Hi.
I'm Gabriel.
Yeah. Okay, Gabriel. Can you remember the WH questions?
Yeah, what, when, where, who?
You don't have all of them.
Why and how?
Good. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. Those are the important things you need to answer. Otherwise, somebody's going to ask you about them, okay? And you might as well tell them first what you want them to know, okay? So that's very good. Be sure that you do this and focus on those 5 or 6 little WH questions. If you answer all of those, you've pretty well got it. Consider open science and its benefits and drawbacks for you and your research. If you become known as someone who posts really crazy things online, you're going to have problems. So don't just post any old thing, okay? Be careful about what goes online because people read it and they copy it. The same with your email. If you start telling about things that you don't want anyone to know, anyone can forward your email. And you know, people get in a lot of trouble because they talk about the drinking party they went to last night or whatever else they did or didn't do. And so as a result of that, those people get into a lot of trouble. So be careful what you put online. Everything that's online can be sent somewhere else, okay? There's no way for you to lock it personally. Some websites can lock, but you personally will have trouble doing that. Okay, make your notes very carefully. You can use note cards or you can use a piece of paper. Be sure that the type or the print is large enough that you can read it when you're standing and it's on a podium. It's not close to you, okay? So test that. Use clear words. If you have words that are going to be very important to your presentation, be sure that you include those in your notes. Do not include superfluous or extra information. Don't include stuff that doesn't belong in there, all right? Do not do that. That wastes your time. It wastes your audience's time and energy, and it gets everybody off track. It's like talking about your grandmother when you should be talking about stomach ulcers, all right? And the science of the ulcers, not your grandmother, unless she had the ulcers, okay? All right, so be careful about all that extra stuff. When I speak Spanish, you know, I throw in a lot of extra words, I make up words, and I speak Spanish in Chile, so you know I can speak almost any kind of Spanish and I get away with it. People there are very kind to me. They always say, oh, lo entiendo, and I always think, yeah, do you really understand me? But somehow I get along. So it's the same thing. And don't worry about your English. If you go to a Congress and it's international, it will be in English. If you write a paper for an international journal, it will be in English. If you write a paper and it's in Spanish, probably the abstract has to be in English, even for a Latin American or Spanish journal. All right. So get your English. I know we don't like having to learn another language, but you know, I learned Spanish in college and I didn't know it at all. And I got to Iquique in 2005 to do some work there. And I couldn't understand a word anybody was saying. And then I found out that no one else can understand Chileans either, but that's okay. Now I do, and you do too, and we're all fine. We speak a language to communicate, and that's what we need to do is communicate. We want to get our ideas across. So communicate accurately and clearly. Be sure that you get your focus very sharp and look at your audience, okay? Look at them. Don't look at the screen when you're got your PPT up there. Look at your audience and talk with them, all right? They want to learn from you, usually. No reading, no memorizing. If you're online, speak to an intelligent general audience who only see your head and face. I know one woman who wears her pajamas, but she always puts on a nice shirt on top because she said, they can't tell if I'm in my pajamas. And right now I have on my slippers. I don't have on shoes. Do you care? No, but you can't see them. So think about what your audience can see and project it. It's like a little movie screen. So play with that. You can do that for yourself with Zoom, has lots of backgrounds, or you can put your own backgrounds in there. And there are plenty of wonderful Chilean scenes that you could put behind you. So that would be great, or wherever you are. Okay, practice your speech. Eye contact, direct address to your audience, and your timing. If you have 3 minutes and you are going over 3 minutes, you will get cut off. All right, so be careful that you have your time exactly as it should be. All right, and 3 minutes goes really fast. You can turn, if you have a microwave oven, just turn it on for 3 minutes. That's how long it takes to heat up your dinner. Try to give your speech in that time, or get a little timer, or use your cell phone. There are lots of things you could do to check yourself. And your voice is also important. If you talk in monotone and you always keep the same voice and you don't go up or down or louder or softer, people will go to sleep very quickly. If I talk too loudly, I might shock you. And if I'm very quiet, you will think, does she have a secret she's trying to say? Okay, so practice with your voice. And if you have a very high voice, that can be difficult for some people to listen to. So see if you can work with a little bit and just lower it a little bit. Singing exercises help. My doctoral students will tell you I have them do the A-E-I-O-U. Or like a big meow for a cat. Meow, because it brings your voice through all of your vocal cords. Everybody can try that right now. You're all muted. So, or you can unmute and we can have a chorus. We can all sing together. Just try a big meow and you will feel what happens in your voice. Meow, meow, because it helps your voice. And when you are speaking to a computer or even giving a presentation, teaching a class, whatever you're doing, it really helps to loosen up your vocal cords before, because then you can go up and down and you can make the sounds louder or softer as you like. Use your voice for emphasis, okay? It's part of what you can do. Your hands, your facial expression, all of those things are called pragmatics. They go along with the language and they help the language to be more convincing or more communicative. So try that. Finally, we have gestures. You don't see too much online, but you've noticed I use my hands a little bit, make a funnel and come to a point. You can do that, but it's difficult online. But if you are giving a lecture in a big room, or you are giving a pitch presentation, you want to use your body, move it around so that people see that you are enthusiastic about your topic. If you don't appear or act to be interesting or interested, you are not going to help your audience be interested in you. So try to be as convincing as possible and bring your audiences into your world, all right? You want them to understand what you are doing and how you're doing it. Okay, and then think of your poise and your posture. Stand up straight, not rigid, You don't have to keep your hands in your pocket, because then people say, what's he got in his pocket? That's so interesting, right? Keep your hands out where people can see them. If you're really nervous and you have a podium, you can hang on and move one hand at a time, but you've got your little security podium there. That's okay. And if you're really afraid of the people in the audience, look over everybody's head at the back of the room, because they think you're looking at them, but really you don't have to look at anybody's eyes. Just look over their heads in the back and turn your head from side to side, and they all think that you're talking to someone else. The idea for your audience is to feel that you are talking to them directly, okay? So if you aren't too nervous, look them right in the eye. If you're teaching a class, look at your students, don't look at the blackboard. Don't just look at your computer, look at the people who are listening to you or who you want to listen to you. The idea is for them to listen to you and hear, and your PowerPoint is just going to punctuate what you're saying and give them the points to think about. So use your graphics very carefully. Use your AFE. You might be doing a poster. The postdoctoral students at UDD did poster presentations a couple of months ago, one in Spanish and then one in English, and they did a great job with those. So posters are one of the first things you might present at a Congress. It's pretty easy to get accepted with a poster, but you still have to be prepared to answer questions. You might be asked to give a short presentation about your poster, what's on that poster. The poster is usually about 1 meter long and 2/3 of a meter wide, and you can put a lot of information on there. If you're going to a conference where they speak Spanish, it can all be in Spanish, but you might still be asked some questions in English, and you might have to write an English abstract, which is a little pitch, just those WH questions, a little pitch to be accepted. Okay, so think about those things and adjust as you need to. But with a poster, you've got people coming up and asking questions all the time. If you did not go to the last Feria for posters, I would encourage you to go to the next one. UDD has one every year. It's a wonderful opportunity to learn about the research that's going on at the university. You're speaking to the researchers themselves. Their professors are often there to help give more information or to ask other questions. It's a wonderful opportunity. Not very many universities in Chile are doing this, and nor are they training their graduate students or other students. So I think that this UDD is really ahead of the ball here, and I think it's a very great idea. So that's good. On your PowerPoint or your poster, you want to avoid busyness. The term for that by people who prepare these documents is called noise. It's what's going on in the background that is distressing or disturbing to your audience. There's too much information and they can't see it clearly. So if you have a big poster, you want to organize your research according to the chronology or according to what's most important. Do the same thing that you're doing with the pitch. It's got an introduction, it's got some purpose, it tells what other research is being done, you tell about your research, and you can give some little discussion at the bottom, some points. There are a lot of posters online, some are good, some are not, but you can take a look at those. There are also online videos on YouTube and elsewhere of the pitch competitions. You can look at those and see how they're done. It's very interesting to hear what people are doing and to see how they prepare the pitch competitions. They're different every place. The ones in Australia began as the most formal one that gives money prizes and so forth. And UDD runs its own pitch competition, and there is a small money prize or a gift certificate for the winners of that. So I think just be careful about this. And when you are giving a presentation, do not block the images of the poster. If you're standing in front of it, they can't see it. The audience can't see it. The same with the PowerPoint. Don't get in front of it and talk to the PowerPoint. It doesn't have ears. Talk to your audience and point to it on the side, right? You can use a little laser printer, or you can just point to it with your finger. You're right there. So do that. But mainly what we want to do is relax and have fun. Communicate with your audience, whether they are readers, listeners, jurors, or the world, everyone. We are here to try to help make the world a better place. That's what research is all about, right? And we can't do that if we don't communicate what we're trying to learn. So I say, all of you are probably doing really good work. I know it's the work of some of you. I know the work of the researchers and the graduate students at UDD, and I'm really excited to work with you all the time, and it's a lot of fun for me. But I do know that we have to communicate our purpose really clearly, and it's got to be to the audience, whichever one we're choosing, whether it's open science or it's a traditional one. So let's see, Daniel, are we at the end here? We have, I think that's all.
Yeah, what's the last one?
All right, so you're in charge, go for it.
All right, so I have a question here in the private chat
All right.
from Moreya, and says, are two questions. The first one is, what kind of resources are better to use to reach different types of or kinds of audience at the university?
At the university?
Yeah.
Okay, well, if you are at UDD or any other university or an indexed journal that is working with universities, the best sources are peer indexed journals. They are accepted right now, okay? And there you can go online and find out which journals are the best because they have the most citations. But it's a bit of an interesting process because you have three big, WAS, Elsevier, and so forth, that three big publishing companies that publish all the journals. And as I said, they have the reviewers and the editors. Now, you get your article published in that journal, and then people cite it. And according to the number of citations, that raises the level of your university and the journal. The more citations, they say, the higher index it is. So they're political science or the Journal of Politics. There's three journals. One of them is rated more highly than the other because it's got a higher index, and the index comes from the number of citations. And it's harder to get into those journals. But I always suggest if you want to get into a journal, start at the top and you can read that index journal. Today, universities are judging themselves and each other by the number of citations in indexed journals. My university, the University of Colorado, was the first university. It had more indexed and cited journal articles than any other university in the world. Every year, Shanghai Jiaotong University does a rating of who has the most citations. And my university index journals and who gets the most citations. And I know researchers who tell all their friends to go in there and cite their journal article if they can in their own article. Okay, that's how the citation works. So I read your article, I cite it in my research because I'm interested in that same field, and then my article gets published, but you are cited. So however many times that happens on the world. You have to think about this. How many researchers are there on this planet who want to get published in a limited number of journals, maybe 1,000 journals that are highly indexed at the most, right? You've got over 1 million researchers who want to get into these, and maybe they publish at most 10 articles in each journal. This is really hard to get into them, okay? So you need to do good research and you need to do a really good writing on your paper, all right? And that's why, I mean, UDD keeps me as an editor for articles, and that's what I do. And people are, I mean, everybody's been published now. So you're all speaking Spanish. I speak English and enough Spanish that I can figure out what you were trying to say. So, you know, I can fix those problems, but I can't fix your research. I am not a geneticist. I am not a road engineer that knows anything at all about tunnel deflation and earthquakes, but I learn a lot. I learn really a lot from all of you, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much. But I think that for now, if you are in the university, the open science is not giving you credit. I was the first online teacher at the University of Colorado. That was in about 1990, 91. There were no online classes at that time. I wrote one of the 3 first online classes in the United States. So I've been at this a long time online, and I was given no credit for teaching an online class or for having online research, none of it. Today, you can be given credit if the university believes that the journal is worthwhile, okay? And that's individual universities say okay, and some say no. So you're still better off with the, going with the index journals. Does that answer your question?
I have another question
Okay.
from Marcial Beltrami, and it
Okay,
says, when you made citizen science, I don't know if the term is correct, in what way you can verify all the data that the people bring to the research, and is it possible to verify?
Yes, it is possible to verify. Marcial, thank you. That's a very good question. We have citizen science, which is a form of open science, or it can be part of someone's research project. At the University of Colorado, they do both butterfly and bee counts because we're trying to keep track here for sustainability. We have a climate that's very much like that of maybe, not quite Santiago, but we are at 1,800 meters for the University of Colorado, and we are severely continental just on the eastern edge of the Rocky Mountains. So we want to know how many native bees and butterflies. They send out teams of citizens who volunteer. They teach them what to look for, and they have one of the researchers who goes with the teams to help keep track. And the woman here who is basically the expert on Western butterflies organizes this every year. They do a big butterfly count. Who's going through on this day every year? And they can verify it because the researchers are there with them. If you're doing a more general sort of citizen science, you just, for example, you send all your students out to count how many cars on such and such an intersection for traffic control. How do you keep track of that? Only if they film it. That's the only way. Or you have someone out there to verify that they're doing the work, because they could falsify anything or they could not count accurately. And we know that if there's an accident and 3 different people see that accident, you will get 3 different reports about it because we all see different things. So it's very difficult to verify citizen science. On the other hand, if the project is presented as citizen science and you do a disclaimer up front that says, we had regular citizens who were doing whatever it was, and these are the results from that, and they can't be verified, but they give us an indication, all right? That's something that you can do with that. But it's very difficult to verify if you don't have a researcher there or some filming of some kind. I have worked on a few of these projects myself. They've given me check sheets. You go check things, but maybe you miss something. You do the best you can. But so do the researchers. We all do the best we can, don't we? So that's what it is. Does that help answer? Are you doing some citizen science?
No yet.
What is your field, Marcial?
Zoology and ethology. So it is possible.
Okay.
It is possible to do something like that.
Mm-hmm. You absolutely could. If I were a sociologist in Chile today, I would go out and look to see what the immigrants are selling on the streets. And I would talk to them about whether they're making enough money to live. I lived in Talca for a while, and there I talked to a young man who had been a plumber in Haiti, and he was selling grapes on the street and washing windows, doing anything he could. He was living in a room with 11 others because they didn't have money, and they would take turns sleeping. So I think that something like that could be very interesting, and you can send some students out, or you can go do it yourself. Go see what's out there. It doesn't have to be super accurate, but you will get an indicator. And then you could perhaps design a more strict, formal project from that. Okay, citizen science often is a good way to find it. Is something going on here or not? Okay. I think if you're in anthropology and sociology, I think you have lots of good stuff to study in Chile. I'm a trained anthropologist too, so I know, I look around all the time, citizen observation or participant observation, the ethnography is so important, and it's really good. So keep going. All right.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Anne. Luis Castañeda says, Dear Anne, I think I misunderstood you when you say that a good pitch effectiveness is in what we deliver as information the first 3 minutes for a good pitch. Is that correct?
For the oral pitch competition, you need 3 minutes. You need to tell what you're doing, who's doing it, a little bit about the methods, which is where and how you are doing it, and why it's important. So you need to explain your project with the same format. So you have an introduction, a little background, you talk about the methods, you talk about what you found or you hope to find, and then a conclusion. And you do that in 3 minutes. So answer all of those WH questions and you just about have enough for 3 minutes, okay? But organize it with the background, a purpose, what's going on, who's been doing this research, how you will do it, what you hope to find out, and a conclusion. Does that help? Is that clear?
Thank you.
Okay, and Luis, also, we will have these slides up online and you can talk to Danielle. He's got my email address if you get stuck, okay?
Okay.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you.
I don't have more questions in the chat. Si alguien quiere hacer alguna pregunta en vivo, puede levantar la mano o escribirla en el chat y la podemos traducir para Anne, o hacerla en español también para Anne. Or if you have another tip, Anne, it's very welcome for us.
Okay, my tip is for everyone to have a very happy holiday season, okay? Finish your courses, finish your classes, your papers, whatever you have to do. And remember that the Office of Investigations at UDD can offer my services to the UDD faculty and sometimes to the students as well. Those of you who are not at UDD, you need to talk to Danielle about this, but I think that it's UDD is a very good resource for everyone in Chile, and the professors there are doing excellent research, as are the graduate students and the postdocs. So it's a very good little university. It's moving along very fast. My University of Colorado is one of the top 10 public universities in the United States, maybe in the world this year, I can't remember. But we have about 30,000 students on my campus, and we have 2 other campuses and a medical big research area. So I'm coming from a very big university, and I love working at UDD because it's nimble. That means you can move things quickly and make changes and do things. And UDD gives a great deal of support to the faculty and the students. And I really like working on that basis. I think it's really good. If you need help with anything, go talk to Daniel and Victor. They're right there waiting for you to come. And if you need something from me, they can help you get in touch if it's okay with them. They're the boss. They're my bosses. So, they can tell you. So, and it's been really nice to speak with all of you today. I hope that you learned something. The pitch and the way of thinking about the pitch is what's really important for researchers. You just have to focus very carefully and be able to state what you're doing clearly, concisely to a big, wide audience. You need to be able to talk to everybody about it. So if you're doing a very complex research project, think about how you would present it to a group of students at the Escuela Básica in the lower levels. How would you go speak to some children in the 3rd level? How would you tell them about what you're doing? You might have a little poster for them. You might do a PowerPoint slide. You might do a little pitch. You're just telling them what you're doing. You might enlist them in some citizen science if there's something that you want to learn. The kids in Chile are smart. Chileans are really smart. I work all over the world, and Chileans have a very smart native intelligence, and it's a really wonderful country. And I just think, of course, it's got problems, but we had Donald Trump here. I don't know if you like Donald Trump, but we're still recovering from that. And they're just odd politics and lots of problems every place. But we also can concentrate on what's good. And I think Chile is one of my homes, and I love it, and I'm happy to help all of you. And I just thank you for coming. And I hope that today's presentation is useful to you or your students or your work. And let me know if you need anything else. Okay.
Thank you very much, Anne. We hope to see you in the next version of this diploma. And thanks for all your tips and to empower us on the open science. And happy holidays.
Yep,
It's a
and
little
happy
soon,
holidays.
but happy holidays.
Yeah, pretty soon it's coming, you know, we have snow here. I know it's hot in Santiago. I heard it was 30 degrees. Yeah,
Yeah.
here it's about, let me see, 32 degrees Fahrenheit. It is 0 for you today where I live.
Wow.
We have snow. We have snow and more snow is coming. So I live on the other half of the planet and it's always interesting to see. So, all right, everybody have a good time and have a wonderful holiday season. Happy New Year. I hope to be in Chile in April maybe, and we'll maybe see some of you then. So good luck to everyone. Good research. All right. Just remember the WH questions and remember to focus. Try to write your purpose in 1 sentence, short, not more than 25 words. Better is 15. Really try to come to a point. That's difficult for Spanish speakers. Okay, it's very easy for me to get away from the point. I can talk and talk and talk, as you've noticed. So, you know, and in Spanish, you would barely understand what I'm saying. Daniela can tell you that, huh, Daniela?
Nice to see you, and
Okay, so adios. Bye con Dios. Yeah, y feliz Navidad, huh? Okay. Ciao, ciao.
you.